There are some missing person cases that stay with people because they are tragic. Then there are others that stay with people because they feel almost impossible to understand. Patricia Meehan's disappearance is one of those cases. It is the kind of story that does not leave you with one simple question, it leaves you with dozens. How does someone survive a car accident, walk away from the scene, and then vanish so completely that decades later, no one can say for sure what happened to her? Patricia Meehan did not disappear from a crowded city. She did not vanish after announcing a trip. She did not leave behind a clear plan, a goodbye, or a simple explanation. She disappeared after a head-on collision on Highway 200 near Circle, Montana on April 20th, 1989. That is the official outline of the case. But the outline does not explain the fear, confusion, and mystery that followed. It does not explain how a woman can be connected to a real event in a real place with witnesses nearby and still somehow disappear into the dark. This is not just a strange story from Montana. This is a story of a real woman named Patricia Bernadette Meehan. She was 37 years old when she vanished. She was known as Patty to some who knew her. She had a life before this case, a family who loved her, and people who would spend years looking for answers that never came. Before Patricia became part of an unsolved mystery, she was a daughter. She was a person with her own thoughts, worries, dreams, and struggles. And that is important to remember because cases like this can become so strange that the person at the center gets lost behind the mystery. On the night of April 20th, 1989, Patricia was on Montana Highway 200 near Circle. If you have never seen that part of the country, it is hard to fully understand the kind of emptiness that can exist out there. Montana can be beautiful in a way that almost does not feel real. Long stretches of road, wide open land, huge skies. But at night, that beauty can turn into something else. The road gets quiet, the headlights become the only thing you can really see. And beyond them, the landscape can feel endless. That night, Patricia was involved in a head-on collision. Official missing persons records state that she went missing in the aftermath of that crash. That one sentence is simple, but the reality behind it is anything but simple. Most accidents leave behind a scene that can be studied. There are vehicles, there are witnesses, there is damage. There is a point where investigators can begin asking questions. But in Patricia's case, the accident was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of her disappearance. After the crash, Patricia was gone. This is the part of the case that has haunted people for decades. She was not found injured nearby. She was not taken to a hospital. She was not located walking down the road a short time later. She simply vanished from the aftermath of an accident that should have made her easier to find, not harder. When you slow the story down, the horror of it becomes clearer. There was a crash, there was confusion, there was darkness, and then somewhere in the middle of all of that, Patricia left the known world behind. The place where she had been was no longer enough to explain where she went. The road, the wreckage, the witnesses, and the official reports all point to one moment in time, but they do not carry the story beyond it. That is what makes this case so unsettling. Patricia's disappearance did not unfold over several days. It did not begin with her packing a bag and quietly leaving town. It happened after a sudden traumatic event, a collision, a shock, a moment where the body and mind can both be thrown into survival mode. And if Patricia was injured, frightened, disoriented, or even confused, then the world around her may not have looked the way it normally would. A rural highway is easy to understand when you are inside a car. You follow the road, you know where it goes, you trust the lines, the signs, the direction, but step away from that road at night, especially after trauma, and everything changes. Distance becomes harder to judge, direction becomes uncertain. What seems close may not be close at all. What seems safe may lead to nowhere. In a place like Montana, one wrong direction can turn into miles of emptiness. That is one possibility people have considered over the years. Maybe Patricia was hurt. Maybe she did not understand what had happened. Maybe she was trying to get away from the crash, or trying to get help, or simply moving because her mind was not processing the moment correctly. But that is only one possibility, and that is the problem. There are too many possibilities and not enough answers. In missing persons cases, families often cling to the smallest details because sometimes those details are all they have. What was she wearing? Where was she last seen? What direction might she have gone? Did anyone see her after that? Did she speak to anyone? Was she alone? Every question matters because every answer might narrow the distance between uncertainty and the truth. NamUs lists Patricia's clothing as jeans and a brown coat. Those details sound ordinary until you imagine someone searching for her. A woman in jeans, a brown coat, somewhere near a Montana highway, somewhere after a crash, somewhere lost in the dark. Details like that become more than descriptions. They become the image a family carries, the image searchers look for, and the image that strangers might have been asked to remember. But Patricia was not found that night. She was not found the next day. And as time passed, her disappearance grew even more confusing. There were reported sightings over the years, and like many cases with possible sightings, they brought hope and pain at the same time. A sighting can feel like a lifeline, but if it doesn't lead to the missing person, it can reopen the wound all over again. That is one of the cruelest parts of a disappearance like this. Hope does not always feel gentle. Sometimes hope is exhausting. Sometimes it keeps a family moving when there is nowhere else to go. Sometimes it makes every phone call feel like it could change everything. And sometimes after the call ends, the silence comes back, even heavier than before. For Patricia's family, this was not just an unusual case people would later discuss online or see on television. This was their loved one. This was someone missing from birthdays, holidays, conversations, and everyday life. The rest of the world could look at this case and see mystery. Her family had to live with the absence. That is why it matters how we talk about cases like this. Patricia Meehan should not be remembered only as the woman who vanished after a car accident. She should be remembered as a human being who deserves safety, help, and answers. Her family deserved answers too. They deserved to know whether she was alive somewhere, whether she was hurt, whether someone saw her, whether someone helped her, or whether something happened after she left the crash scene that has never been uncovered. One of the reasons Patricia's case continues to draw attention is because it feels like it should have been solvable. There was a date, there was a road, there was an incident, there was a known area. In many cases, investigators begin with almost nothing. Here, there was a starting point, and yet the starting point did not lead to Patricia. That is what makes this case feel so deeply haunting. It is not simply that Patricia disappeared. It is that she disappeared from a moment where she had just been seen. She'd just been involved in an accident, just been connected to the physical world in a very real way. Then, the trail faded. When people hear about this case, they often focus on the strangeness first. They picture the highway, they picture the crash, they even picture the idea of someone walking away and vanishing. But the emotional center of the story is not the strangeness. It is the unanswered loss. A woman was there, and then she was gone. Her loved ones were left behind with a case file instead of closure. Over time, Patricia Meehan's disappearance became one of Montana's most talked about mysteries. It was featured in public case coverage and has remained the subject of discussion for decades. But attention is not the same as resolution. A case can be famous and still be unsolved. A name can be known and still not be found. A story can be repeated many times and still leave the family with nothing solid to hold on to. That is why old cases still need to be talked about carefully, not for entertainment alone, not because they are strange, but because someone is still missing. Patricia's name is still listed in official missing person records. Her case still has an investigating agency attached to it. That means this story is not finished. It means the questions are still open. There is also something about the Montana landscape that becomes a bit a part of this story. Highway 200 near Circle is not just a location on a map. It represents the kind of place where a person can feel very small against the land. In daylight, the openness can be peaceful. At night, after trauma, it can feel isolating. If Patricia walked away from the crash, every step would have taken her farther from the one place people knew to search first. And yet, despite searches, reports, attention, and time, Patricia was never located. That is the fact that sits at the center of everything. Theories can circle around it, questions can build around it, but the fact remains, Patricia Meehan disappeared on April 20th, 1989, after a head-on collision near Circle, Montana, and she has not been found. When a person disappears, their story often becomes frozen at the last unknown moment. For Patricia, that moment is the highway, but no one's life should be reduced to the place where they were last seen. Patricia had years before that night. She had family, memories, and a life that mattered long before the road near Circle became part of her story. That is why the way we tell these stories matters. It is easy to make a case sound eerie. It is harder, but more important, to make it human. Patricia was not an internet mystery. She was not a character in a strange tale. She was a real woman who disappeared, whose disappearance left real people hurting. And that is why the unanswered questions still matter. What was Patricia experiencing in the moments after the crash? Was she aware of where she was? Was she injured or hurt? Did she believe she needed to leave? Did someone encounter her later? Did someone give her a ride? Did she become lost in the surrounding area? Or is there another answer that has never come to light? The most honest answer is that we just simply do not know. And sometimes that is the hardest part of true crime. Not the theories, not the strange details, not even the fear. It is the not knowing. It is the space between the last confirmed moment and the truth. It is the silence that stretches for years. For Patricia Meehan's family, that silence began in 1989. For the public, the case may feel like a mystery. For them, it was a life changed forever. A missing daughter, a missing loved one, a person that could not be brought back home. There is a phrase often used in missing person cases. Someone knows something. Sometimes that is true in a direct way. Sometimes it means someone saw something small and never realized it mattered. Maybe someone saw a woman matching Patricia's description after the crash. Maybe someone remembers a conversation. Maybe someone heard a story years ago that did not make sense at the time. Maybe there's a detail sitting in someone's memory that could still help. That is why sharing these stories still matters, not because we can solve them from a distance, but because keeping a name alive keeps the possibility of answers alive. Cases go cold when people stop talking. Names fade when people stop saying them. But Patricia Meehan's name still deserves to be spoken. Her disappearance is strange, yes. It is haunting, it's very unsettling. But more than anything, it is unfinished. Patricia Meehan vanished after a head-on collision on Highway 200 near Circle, Montana on April 20th, 1989. She was 37 years old. Official records still list her as missing, and decades later, the question remains the same. Where is Patricia Meehan? If you have any information about Patricia Meehan's disappearance, contact the McCone County Sheriff's Office or submit information through NamUs. After all these years, one detail could still matter. Thank you for watching the Unsolved America series. If you care about real missing person cases, cold cases, and stories that deserve to be remembered with compassion, subscribe to this channel, because every case matters, every name matters, and every unanswered story deserves to be heard.